Hey ye, hey ye, hey ye. People have demanded for another live, and we decided to go live because since the last time you saw us, things have been happening in the football game that needs to be discussed. It needs panels, it needs everyone. And the panelists, the Ball at All Cost team, have been fully charged up and want to be in the building for us to have this very, very serious and important discussion. But before we get into that, as customary at Ball at All Costs, don't worry about my mental health and well-being. Yesterday was an absolute disaster class from my club. I don't give a damn if I get sent off like that now. I am hurting from that debacle of a performance from my club, Tottenham Hotspur. But I'll pull it out there. I've got it off my chest. We can move on. I'm going to touch base with the Ball at All Cost panel. OC in the building, looking calm and collected. How are you, bro?
Hey, looking calm and collected. You know what? It's a madness trying to get the kids done and dusted and out the way, like for this stream at 7:30. So, yeah, I think we've done well on that front. Me, I'm good. You know, not loads to report. On the football front, we played yesterday. We travelled down to the Hackney Marshes yesterday, which was an interesting start trying to get into the car park behind Tom. That was quite funny. But yeah, the boys. Let's say the pitch was a leveler. Let's say that. Like, the boys put it out. They drew. They didn't pull it out of the bag, but my boy played well, man. He had a top game, to be fair to him, innit? So yeah, we'll run with that and look forward to the Echo Cup coming in this weekend.
For real. The Echo League coming in this weekend, and big up to your son for that performance. That's it. If the team ain't doing what they're supposed to, then it really falls back to how is my son doing. Dan, on that note, how was your weekend? How did you guys get on?
No football whole weekend.
Oh no.
It was literally a washout Saturday, as you know. Well, allegedly, or vandalism of the pitch, one of the two. And yesterday there's no game. We had a free weekend, but we did a bit of work yesterday behind the scenes, getting ready for the Festival Cup that starts next week. But he's ill today. He got home from school ill, so he's in bed at 7:00, which is not like him.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a very chill day for him.
I was gonna say, like, even when we have the opportunity to take a break, you know what I mean, we're still putting in the work. That's the dedication and the location that we do in this football thing. So big up to you, Dan, as well, and speedy recovery to the goalkeeping little man himself. Like, big up to you. Hopefully, speedy recovery to you, my God. We're sending you love and healing here at Ball at All Costs. I want to bring in Tom and I, we bumped into each other. Tom, I have to say, I did glance over briefly at your son's game, and he pulled off a worldie of a save. In fact, he pulled off quite a few worldie of a saves. I actually don't know what happened in the game, man, but he's doing really, really well. But how are you, Tom?
Mate, all good. Good weekend. The goal scoring streak for myself, boys, 2-2, flying. Jan Molby pulling the strings in Vets football, so sort of buzzing on Saturday, and then yeah, got to watch the boy play a couple of games yesterday. So yeah, life's good. Enjoying the journey with him. I'm buzzing to have Addy on because I wanna sort of get into his brain around the old Conor Ben situation as well. But you know, life on positive for me on football, boys. Really, but pleased to be here because this is a massive topic, and I can't wait to sort of get into it.
100%. No, thank you, Tom. And Ade, my bro, it feels like it's been a minute. So good to see you. You're looking well. How's things been for you since the last time that we touched base, bro? Update us on the little man as well, man. Love to you guys as well. So what's been happening, bro?
Yeah, listen, thank you very much, Dej. I just want to say it's a pleasure kind of being back on the show. It has been a real, well, I don't even know. It's been maybe 4 or 5 months, maybe, or two, definitely over 3 months since I've been on. you lot have just been going from strength to strength. Excellent conversations, great input, great context for parents, whether you're in academies or you're in grassroots, or you know what, I would actually say, if your kid's into any kind of sport, these conversations can help you. There's an impact. There's something you can take from these conversations, whether it's parents' mentality, children's mentality, coaches, staff, anything. I just think it's wide-reaching, and just well done to all of you. Absolutely. On a personal level, yeah, these coming along very, very well. Yeah, they played yesterday. What was it? You know, they do it in 4:20, so sometimes it's hard to know, because some people look at it as, oh, one game. Some people say, no, that was the first game and the second game was this score. So I can't really tell you what the score was, to be honest. I kind of forget. But apart from that, yeah, coming along nicely, and we just keep going. You know, we just keep going.
Bro, keep up the good work. And I think that there needs to be something where we do a deeper dive with you and Tom as well, maybe coming together and just sharing some of the insights. I'm sure you guys, if you haven't already bumped into each other in the circuit, always just sharing the insights, because it's a constantly changing and revolving door. So it'd be good to just kind of touch base in what you're seeing, what we should be looking out for those who are up and coming, and hopefully one day will be in your position. As for me, look, I'll keep it very, very quickly. We suffered another defeat, 2 defeats on the trot now. Fair play to them. I think Billericay, they did really, really well yesterday. For us, I think it's back to the drawing board, but we've got the Festival Cup kicking off this weekend, and we'll look forward to that. Sometimes I forget that the lads team is the current holders, because we revere the big names of the Hadleys, the Billerickys, the Brentwoods, the Levels, and the Finesses of this world. So we celebrate and salute those teams and Nation Sport, to be fair. Let them go and fight for the title, and we'll just see where we are. The other thing that I just wanted to just kind of put out is that little man is also not feeling well. He was home today. He's nursing a terrible cough. He's had it all weekend, to be honest. So something is going around. So speedy recovery to all the little ones in the building. Let's get into it, though. Racism in football. And big up to Trinity in the chat. I'm glad you guys are speaking on this topic. Very unfortunate. Jose disappointed me. I don't see him the same way anymore. And for me, I think as we're kicking off into this topic, I think it's so disappointing, and it's not a cliche that in 2026 we're having to have this conversation. I remember growing up, and my dad was a Unison rep, and you know, he'd be fighting against racism, and I kind of hoped deep down that it wouldn't be a thing as much. But it seems like with the advent of social media, it's becoming even worse. You know what I mean? The social media is bringing out the worst in people, but also we're having players now who are literally doing these things, and then people are criticizing the player rather than the person who committed the offense. So I don't know who wants to kick us off, but I know this is based on the issue that happened with Vinicius Jr. last week. Who wants to start us off and kind of let's get into this topic?
Yeah, I'm happy to get it going. So obviously this topic has been around since the dawn of time, and we all know it. It doesn't even matter if you're black, if you're white, if you're Asian. You've heard of someone who's experienced racism or been the perpetrator of racism. Obviously, I grew up in East London, Canning Town, and it was in the 90s. And those kind of things were kind of normal. They were kind of normal. There were certain areas you wouldn't go to maybe on your own late at night. You had NF written on the walls. You would come outside school, you'd have NF written on the walls. BMP was written on the walls. And you knew it was apparent. Obviously, you don't have that kind of writing on the walls now, obviously around probably Canning Town and that area. But the inner thoughts of it has never left people. Now, the way that it's been exploded so much is with social media, it does give you a platform to hide behind. And that's why you have so many people that can express their views, positive or negative, on social media. You don't have to go up to someone's face and say it, but you can have the exact same impact. And not only that, you could have a wider impact on what you're saying. Because if we're in a one-to-one situation and you say something and it's only me that hears it, or one or two of us that hears it, it can be restricted to that confined space. When you put that out on social media, whether you have a real account or it's a fake account, you've got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of people that can hear and see and experience what you say in the way you said it. Obviously, there was, before the Vinicius Jr. scenario, there was that thing that Trump put out about Obama and and his wife. And again, when you look at the situation of how big is this, how much of an effect of this is a society issue. This is not just a football issue or a political issue or an underground issue. This is a society issue. And many of us have understood how deep that thing goes. So now when it comes on to this stage on the football pitch, where you think you're playing against your peers, because to be honest, it's one thing when a fan says it to you, and even that is difficult, very difficult. I've experienced racism when I was playing football. I've experienced racism when I was in a youth team from first team players, and I was young then. I was young, I was like 16 years of age. So even then, there was very few people to even turn to, because some of the first team players are also black. They knew that that was a normal thing. That was a thing that you kind of had to bite your lip, or you will be looked at the one that it was the troublemaker. That, what's you complaining about? Oh, it's normal, da-da-da. And, it, in some ways, you kind of you got on with it, even though you knew it was wrong. And it left more than a bitter taste. It left anger, it left disappointment, from one, you being a youth team player, having thoughts of getting in the first team, making your debut and trying to become an established player, by someone that you are probably going to be playing with or playing next to is racially abusing you. So that was difficult. But even the biggest thing now is football is so wide that all of our kids know all of these players. So I asked Devontae, because he told me, he said, "Oh, Dad, did you hear what happened to Vinicius Jr.?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "What did you think of it?" He said, "This is bad." I said, "Okay, explain it to me." He said, "It's bad that, it's reported that the guy called him a monkey." And I said, "So, tell me what you think that could mean." He said, "Well, he's being racist towards him." And I said, "So what do you reckon?" I was trying to kick off a conversation of how, it should have been dealt with. And he said, "No, he done the right thing, going to tell the ref. But ultimately, why did the guy have to be racist to him?" Now, obviously, it's allegedly because the guy covered his mouth, but no one here is stupid. No one of us. In fact, if anyone in the world thinks that that guy did not say a racist comment, they're confused and they're just lying to themselves. Because Vinicius Jr. has just slapped one in the top corner. He celebrated in the way that he feels fit. Then as he's come back to the line, the guy's purposely put his shirt over his mouth and then said something to him, knowing that would provoke a reaction. And I doubt it was, "Oh, you're just an idiot. Oh, that goal was lucky." So for us to have to experience that and then explain that to our children and have that conversation, that's difficult, especially when you're thinking, if it's in my lifetime, hopefully my child won't say it. So, and obviously I'm coming from a mixed heritage relationship. Devontae's mum's white, I'm obviously black. So he gets to have a conversation with both of us about it. And we think that's very important as well. So that's how I wanted to kick it off.
Hey, Ade, I think thank you for kind of outlining and reminding us about the incident and kind of setting the tone for the conversation. I think I would love to kind of bring in OC. We can just build on that. and what you made of picking up from Ade, and then let's kind of go deeper into that incident, because there's other stuff that's going to come out of this naturally, but let's go deeper into that and your thoughts and what you saw.
Do you know what, for me, so like the guys, everyone here's got kids, the audience has got kids, and for something like that to be happening, like when they're watching their idols, they're watching the Champions League, and they're seeing that on the screen, it's shocking for them, because like they said, listen, when I was growing up, I grew up mainly in Hornchurch. It was racism, there was racial slurs there. And I remember loads of stories about my brothers in Romford running away from NF and skinheads and all this type of stuff. Yeah, like it was there in society, and as we've gone through the decades, it's less and less. Well, we say it's less and less. It's gone behind closed doors, if you like. But for our children, being in 2026, 9, 10, 11, you're thinking that they wouldn't need to witness that type of thing. They wouldn't need to have to see it so blatant. So yeah, from when I saw that on the pitch, I was shocked, because obviously, one, we haven't seen that protocol before, right? It's happened before within a game, but we haven't seen them stop the game and there be conjecture about it as well. So my boy wasn't up, but I was watching it and I was like, wow, like this is new, which is a good step, I would say. But again, just coming back to having that dialogue and that conversation with your child. Like I was speaking with Isaac about, he's a bit younger, so I spoke to him about it today, and he's younger, isn't it? So he hasn't necessarily got the he's not mature enough to have that type of conversation. He said it's not right, and he said that it might make the player feel sad and things of that nature. But it's the way that, regardless of age, a child needs to process that in this day and age. And I think personally, I think it's wrong. I think, yeah, if we speak about, so listen, as adults and as like guardians of the game, listen, everyone's a guardian of the game, isn't it? Like the parents, the coaches, like at grassroots level and at senior level. But when you've got people of such high reputation and held in such high regard in terms of Mourinho, and the way that he spoke about that particular incident, it's sickening, you know? Like it's shocking and it's sickening, because how can you come out like that so brazenly, and how can you listen, football is almost like it's me against you type thing, but when it comes to situations like that, I think perspective needs to be had. And that is after the event. That's after the game. You've had time to think about it. You're now in the press, and you think it's okay to broadcast to the world in the way that he did. Yeah, and he hasn't even come out to say anything since. I just think the whole sequence of events that particular day is shocking, and yeah, repercussions are still happening now. So. Yeah, man. It's a tough conversation, you know. It's tough to deal with, especially when you've got the kids.
It's tough, but these conversations need to be had, because I think we need to get to a point where we move from this. But I want to quickly bring Tom in and then Dan. Tom, you know, I feel everyone's getting an opportunity to kind of get some stuff off their chest, and before we kind of go on a deeper dive. But picking up from OC's point, Mourinho's comments, and maybe also the comments of the company, if you could just, you know, give your response to what you saw, how you felt, what you heard, and then we'll get into, you know what I mean? That would be useful.
Yeah, first and foremost, I mean, personally, I'm just devastated. You know, I'm sad, really, that this is the state of affairs, really. 2026, and we're witnessing what we witnessed, and not only what we witnessed, but also the people involved, their profiles, and ultimately the comments were made by Jose. There's been nothing that's come out from the individual. knock-on effect that has in society, that people then think that that's okay, it's disgusting, and ultimately I'm just really, really struggling that we're still having to talk about these things in football. You know, this shouldn't be something that we're all talking about. It should be about the game. Everyone's equal. These comments it's just sickening. But I think we need to sort of maybe look at, you know, what can we do in terms of, you know, lifetime ban for the individual. You know, that's what it comes down to for me. You know, let's not you know, cover up. It doesn't matter how good some of these players are, they're role models. They're the people that our kids look up to. This cannot be acceptable in any walk of life. This is not just like what we're talking about here is not just football, guys. You know, football's a platform where this has been seen, but this is happening every day. And you know, we need as society, these things need to change. And you know, like I said, I'm just devastated. I'm gutted. I think, you know, I really thought that, you know, things would be changing for the better, but it's just when you've got the likes of the coaches involved and the comments that he made when he's got such a following, he could have came out and been, you know, stand with the player. I just want to see some harsher penalties involved going forward. It's not just the players. It could be the crowds. It could be people, the spectators. You know, I need to start seeing more punishment at the end of the day, because it's all of our kids that get to see this, and it's just not fair. You know, this is just not how society should be. So, you know, hopefully that gives you sort of, you know, I'm really passionate about this. I just really sad, actually. Makes me really sad.
Tom, thank you so much, man, and for just being so candid. And Miran, welcome Andrew into this space. You've come in at a time where already the conversation's already becoming hard hitting. But I think it's time. I think it's a nice segue to Dan, and I think Dan, you're the right person to speak on this as well. Picking up from Tom's point, I'm looking at the situation and I'm thinking, where's UEFA in this? Like, where are the powers that be who to show? Are the powers that be taking this situation serious? And I want you, Dan, to touch on the clubs. I want you to touch on the board, the UEFA as a board. And Tom talked about punishment. From your expertise, your professional walk of life, where you're always putting frameworks in place for organization, what should the punishment be, and realistically, if that makes sense?
Do you know what? I've got so much to say. I've got in my mind, I break up in different areas of what I talk about. I think as we go on, because we're going to be here for a little while, I can see this already. But I just want to say, like, does anything really ever change? Like, we have this conversation before. Like, you just feel all it's going to, football is now becoming like, what's the word? Like a cycle. We have outrage where we are now. Yeah. Everyone's outraged and upset with what's being said and what's not being done. They're going to get a statement that's going to come out. Then we're going to get a fine. That's going to happen. Then there might be a ban, maybe. Then it's repeat again in another sector. So what's actually changing? We've been here before. Ade said New Junglies. All of us here have experienced racism in all forms. I'm not going to say whether it's a black thing, because our friends in the Asian background, they experience also. It happens in all walks of life, and it just feels that if football really is a unifier, a global unifier, and that, why does it fail everyone so publicly or continuously? Where everyone says football is the world sport, it brings it all together, but it doesn't, because it's still happening daily. Like, I listened to Vincent Kompany's statement on this last week, and he was so clear about it. These young players playing today in other countries such as Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria, that can't talk out because they're scared. They don't have the power, they don't have the backing. We have the so-called the PFA here. We have kick it out. but it's still happening. Nothing changes. All the time, it just seems to be going on, and it just feels to me, doing football as a society protect its brand more than the players. Yeah, because
But how can you? Yeah, I hear you, and I think the question is,
and I think going what you're saying, Dej. So I think for me, that as much as we have policies in clubs or in workplaces about safeguarding and everything else, what policies or what's embedded in football clubs and academies that are giving education to these kids as before they become pros, the consequences of that, we see that you get more implications of financial fair play than you do for a racism action within your club. So bodies have to take real stance and really not just put little penal fines in or sanctions. There has to be a consequence that actually you look at and you see it. You actually see it and they feel it. Everyone feels it. Everyone in that club feels it, not just a little bit at the top. Everyone feels it.
Dan, sorry, can I just come in there quickly? On my stance is, if you insult me, Dan, but you don't insult Andy, but Andy hears it, he can't really feel what I'm feeling. So if you say, "Oh, Ad, I think you're an idiot," you said it to me, and you can't feel it. So where I'm going with that is that the governing bodies, FIFA, UEFA, the Premier League, because we can't escape that there was an incident, obviously, over the weekend with the Wolves player, Tolu, the striker who missed a penalty, received racial abuse. There was an incident with Scotland at, I believe it was Celtic, player received racial abuse. There was an incident, if you remember, at Chelsea with the Argentinian player when they were singing the song against Kylian Mbappe.
Chelsea Fofana this weekend as well.
Yes, again, Fofana again received racial abuse. We can go on and on and on, and you're 100% right. But the people at the top cannot feel that. They do not feel what it feels like when you're racially abused. It's okay to say that player's rubbish, that player's crap, that you're talking about someone's ability or talent. He's not fast enough, he's not strong enough, he lets in too many goals, he doesn't take his chances, whatever. When you now insult or demean or undermine a person, a human being, because of their race or their religion or their ethnicity or their sex or their gender, you're going way above and beyond. Because before you're ever a footballer or a politician or an accountant or whatever, you're black, you're white, you're Asian, you're Chinese, before you was ever anything else. So when now the people at the top, and majority of them are white European, they cannot feel what Vinicius Junior or other black players feel when they're abused on a regular basis, because this isn't the first time with Vinicius Junior. Last year, or was it the year before, when a commentator said he needs to stop dancing like a monkey. Openly, in an interview, live on Spanish TV, a commentator said Vinicius Junior needs to stop dancing like a monkey. So he didn't say stop dancing like a clown. He didn't stop saying stop dancing like he's on Come Dancing or anything. He specifically called him a monkey.
Yeah.
So this is why this is even bigger than football. It's a society issue.
I agree with you. And going back to what Dej says, like racism, this isn't just about racism. In terms of safeguarding, Dej, that's what I know you're alluding to, and that's what you want to speak on. This isn't just racism. This is like emotional harm. Yeah, it's psychological risk. It's cultural exclusion. It's environmental safety. This means if we're talking about safeguarding, it's meant to protect children and adults from harm. Yeah, but this isn't happening. We're starting to normalize it. So therefore, what we're looking at in football, if you look at the big concept of safeguarding, we're creating and we're producing abusers. Because when you're an abuser, like your victim become normalizing the actions. So we're now telling we talk about mental toughness and resilience. So basically, what we're telling people to be is to accept their trauma in silence. Yeah, and that is just again a greater aspect of what abuse looks like. If you're an abuser, you want your victim to be quiet and stay silent and don't speak up about what's happening. And that's what we're telling our footballers, of ethnic minorities, that we don't speak up. And your mindset's really strong. You can get through this if you don't say anything. Yeah. So clubs have to now.
Dan,
use this. Yes.
Sorry, just on that point. I hope you don't lose your train of thought. Mark Clattenburg came out and said Vinicius Jr. has made it difficult for the referee. Just to add to your point, the referee, one of the biggest referees in the Premier League era, came out and said Vinicius Jr. has made it difficult for the referee. Make of that what you will. But to me, that sounds like what you're saying. Vinicius should have suffered in silence and not made it difficult for the referee by bringing it to his attention. So normalize it. Just to back up your point. Sorry.
Yeah. And then again, so then in 5 years' time, we're going to have our kids that are watching this on TV. Then the mindset is we absorb this, a strong mindset. We've had it in the podcast in weeks gone by. Strong mindset. The elite athletes have this real strong mindset. So when our kids hear about mindset, are they now they're not going to separate mindset from us getting through hard times in football, whether a bad game or not. They're going to look at us, if someone's racially abusive towards me, I accept it, because I've got to be strong and not suffer in silence. Okay, it's about now clubs embedding in their policies what racial action, what it looks like, that abuse. Okay, not have a poster on the wall say kick it out. Yeah, in part of youth development, youth coaches have that in their part of the program. How do you deal with racial abuse? Because I know in local academies not far from us that it happens within players. Yeah? In WhatsApp groups, as you said, that comment, which may be a turn of a shoulder or turn of the face, is, oh, you're a monkey, turn a blind eye to it. Oh, it's only banter. Yeah, it's not banter. That's the thing. We use this word banter in the terms of what it is. It's just joke. But as you said, Dej, Ade, I can't feel how you feel. I can't tell you how to feel. I can't tell you're wrong for feeling that. What you feel and what I feel are totally different things. And I think that's the problem. That society, again, and we look at social media. Social media, does it help or does it amplify what happens? I think it's so in the media every day, and people are able to have free will, be keyboard warriors, talk behind the screen and behind of a different accounts. That social media amplifies where racism can get away with it. You can be racist and not be. There's no consequences. And I will sit here in 2027, and I will guarantee we're still going to say it. I can say the same thing again. In 2027, I'll be still talking about racism in football. It's going to happen because there's no consequences and no serious actions, and people are literally being told to suffer in silence. And until that changes, an action, we're going to be here over and over again.
Dan, I think, thank you, and I think you touch on it, and the angle that you come up with the kind of psychological trauma. When you frame it in that way, then you cannot realistically expect someone to constantly go and put themselves in a situation where they're going to be constantly abused. You just wouldn't do that in a normal walk of life. And so for me, I what I'm not understanding and I'm not getting is why the clubs don't seem to understand this, why the boards, the football people in charge of football don't seem to understand, or is it that they don't care? Andrew, I want to come to you, Andrew, as well. And what should be happening? Because for me, it's very easy. Personally, the way that I'm feeling, I felt Southgate with the England team when they went to Europe. I can't remember the country they went to, and the game got paused. I thought, okay, it felt like slightly in a step in the right direction. But really and truly, are we getting to a point where games should be called off? Clubs should have points deducted. I know it's very simplistic, but sometimes extreme situations calls for extreme measures. Is that the sort of measures that need to be seen, or are you saying no, it's not that deep, and actually we need to be thinking something more collaborative? Over to you, Andrew.
So straight off the bat, I'm going to say 100% yes, it is that deep. And yes, the measures should be that extreme. But what I just want to kind of add some context to that, in the sense of probably why that isn't happening, is you look at somebody as educated, as smart, savvy, wise as Jose Mourinho. And he came out afterwards, it's been touched on, and basically said Vinicius shouldn't be dancing, shouldn't be celebrating. Now, this is a man who knee slided, I believe, at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
This is a man who's cupped his ears. This is a man who's done all sorts of celebrations. I think he's crossed his arms in solidarity with his Inter team in many years gone by. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly how to manipulate the media. He knows exactly what his words do. And he's done that so that, in my opinion, he backs his player. He's defending his player. He may not know exactly what his player said, but you're his manager. Tell me what you said and let me decide how to handle it in front of the media. So whether that's happened or not, I don't know. But what I do know and what is clear is that he was aware that it was probably racial. He was aware that it was deemed to be racial because he mentioned the statue of Eusebio. As a club, Benfica cannot be racist because Eusebio is their greatest ever player and we have a statue for him. Vincent Kompany spoke very well on that, as Dan touched on, so I'm not going to go into that. But that's deflection. That doesn't deal with the matter at hand. Number 25, as Mbappe said, number 25 isn't Portuguese. I don't even know how long he's been at Benfica, but he's not Portuguese, he's Argentinian. So did he come up through the youth system? Is he inherent in the culture of Benfica? That statement was irrelevant. But what was very relevant was Jose Mourinho didn't want to lose a player, didn't want to lose the trust and the backing of his player because he needs that player. For whatever reason, he needs that player in his team. So he wasn't prepared, as wise and as cultured as Jose Mourinho is supposed to be. He wasn't prepared to damn his player in the media. Now, I'm not saying he should have done that. I'm saying he should have taken a stance of, I don't know what he said, or this is what he's told me he said. But if he has said something racial that is totally out of order, he should have damned the action or the accusation and should have said he would accept any fine that he is given if he is proven guilty. That's what I would have expected somebody as wise as Jose Mourinho to say. And I say that all to say that if the manager as wise as him isn't prepared to do that, a club is definitely not going to be prepared to do that because they don't even respect financial fair play. They don't respect that. These clubs are not fined enough. I think that incident you spoke of, Deji, about England, when these things happen, yes, they play behind closed doors, but they get a fine of tens of thousands of pounds, inconsequential to a footballing association. You have to hit these people in the pocket with real fines and real sanctions, bans. That player, as I think Tom touched on, lifetime ban. If you know you're going to get a lifetime ban for a racial slur or a homophobic slur, you would not do it. Covering your mouth or not, the risk of doing it, you would definitely not do it. If a club is going to be kicked out of a competition, if proven guilty, one of their players, they would ensure they only have good eggs and they don't have any D-heads, as a certain manager said. They would ensure that they fine and punish the players. But because the punishments are so lackadaisical, so inconsequential, it will continue. It will continue, as Dan said, until 2027 and God knows how long. So that's what I believe. Bans, lifetime bans, clubs kicked out of competitions if proven guilty, and the likes of, but they don't have the cojones to do it.
Do you know what, Andrew? I think you're so right. And that's what I would love to see. But I'm going to throw a spanner in the mix and go straight back to Ade. Look, we're talking about clubs imposing lifetime bans. We're talking about clubs, institutions not being fined enough. I think we're all old enough and wise enough to know that there isn't appetite for that dial to move. should we, and bearing in mind what Dan has been saying, should we be looking at now moving the responsibility maybe to the players? Ade, does Vinicius Jr. need to say, you know what, I need to withdraw my service? Does the Wolves player need to say, you know what, I withdraw my service? Because this idea that don't worry, just carry on with the game, you know what I mean? Hurt them by scoring a goal. That don't make it no more, bruv. That language, that kind of rhetoric, I don't think it's enough. No one seems to care. Should we be shifting it, Ade? We'll throw that to you.
This might not sound PC or sound PC. I don't know. First of all, I'm not advocating violence. I'm not. But the reality is, there's only right. First of all, as humans, yeah, your first and formal right to yourself is survival. That means as soon as you're born, you look to protect yourself, and that's going to be through food, through shelter, through clothing. As you grow up, that natural instinct grows bigger, and then you have to now progress in life to be able to do that. When you're now faced with the elements of the world, cold, wind, rain, and so on, you need to protect yourself, and do that by force, by feeding, by saying that. When you go out into the world and you're being abused, you have to protect yourself, because as Dan said, it's a psychological thing. So I don't talk on trauma too much and stuff like that, even though I know obviously it's a topic that is very, very sensitive to people. But most of us have come through where you could be called an N-word, where you could be called a black this, a black that, and you would get that on the way to school, you would get that on the way home from school, you might get chased by a group of, let's say, skinheads or NF or something like that. So you know all about that. And then it comes to a time when you group together and say, no, we're not going to take this, because if we keep running, all they're going to do is keep chasing. So if we don't stand up now and show with a force, then we're going to continue to be victims. So coming along from that, what I'm saying is, never ever should a black player have to walk off a pitch, or an Asian player, or an ethnic minority player walk off a pitch because they're being racially verbally abused. The punishment has to come down to the clubs and the players. So when we're talking about lifetime bans, as Tom said, I agree with that. That's a force of action. Secondly, not only do you get a lifetime ban, but your team is going to be deducted points. Not only do you get a lifetime ban and your team's going to be deducted points, but guess what? Your fans are going to suffer as well. Because unless you make a forceful stance, things continue. Unless you make a forceful stance, things will continue. And like I said before, is that the hierarchy do not feel this pain, because in most cases, they've never experienced it. So if you've never been slapped in the face, you don't know what that feels like. So when you hear someone else down the road got slapped in the face, you think, oh, poor them, that's bad. You know what? We need to, whoever done that, can we have a little meeting? Can we talk about this? Let's put in a t-shirt. No one slapped no one. But you, your fair self, has never felt it. Your family never felt it. Your uncles and aunts have never felt it. You've never been spat on in the street. You've never been denied access to jobs. You've never been denied access to housing back in the 70s, in the 60s. All that thing carries on. We haven't forgot. So if you're saying, what is the way forward? What is the punishment? I think, as Tom said, we've got to look at lifetime bans. Secondly, from them, because that's one thing in the club, but then the club will say, okay, we've lost that player, we'll get another one, we'll get another 4, that's not a problem. Okay, now you're going to be deducted points. Secondly, your fans are going to be banned for as many games as FIFA do, because when the only way you're ever really going to affect things is on a financial basis. That's when clubs, because then it hurts them. Because someone who's invested £100 million into the club and is expecting 10 million turnover a month, whether you're Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal, or someone like that, when you've told, guess what, your fans are not going to attend your games for the next 3, you've been deducted 3 points, which will hurt your Champions League aspirations. Also, we're also taking steps to ban your player, however you're going to compensate them or not. That's the thing. Secondly, the publicity. No big club or no club wants that racism negative publicity. No one wants it. The game is too big to be able to, and this is why clubs are trying to distance themselves. They're trying to quiet it. They're trying to, FIFA and stuff like that. They try and quickly cover it up. Let's not make a big deal. But social media, and this is the benefits here, it will bring it out wide. If this happened 10, 15 years ago, when social media was not so big, maybe in a week we kind of forgot about it. Most of us would have forgot about it in the next 2 days. But social media brings it on such a big level that it has a positive impact and a negative. So for me, we have to look at lifetime bans for players, clubs being deducted and losing points, and fans suffering. Because then that's when you'll see that there's a change, because no one wants to feel that kind of pain financially, physically, going to the games and so on like that. No one.
Can I just jump in there, Ad? Deji, I guess you were saying players potentially should walk away, take things into their own hands, right? Muhammad Ali did that.
Yeah.
The great Muhammad Ali did something similar to what you're suggesting. I just don't know if a player could walk away and come back later on.
Why not?
Why should they lose out?
Yeah.
Because the game moves on. Fitness moves on. What are they doing in that period of time? Well, how are they staying at the level? The game is at such a high level that I don't know if a player can take a hiatus. And yeah, players come back from injury, but not all of them come back at that level. So why should the player lose out on income, sponsorship, whatever it is, feeding their families because of somebody else?
Okay.
Sorry, can I just add on to that? Secondly, boxing and football is different. If a boxer pulls out of a fight, like the whole show can get cancelled or get rescheduled. If, like recently, Ronaldo said, "Oh, I'm not playing because I don't like the way the club's acting," they still played the game. You still got other teams, you still got a squad. You've got a squad of 24, 25, 30 players. Someone else will take the place. I don't think a black player should ever have to walk off the pitch. If they choose to, I'm in support of that. But I never feel they should have to. I feel the punishment should come down on the perpetrator and the club of that perpetrator. For the clubs, financially, everything is what matters. Where are we on a financial basis? So until you start really hitting them, points deductions, massive fines, and then banning fans from coming into the stadium on whether that's 3 or 4 or 5 games, that has a bigger impact, because then they will fund whatever they've got to make sure this doesn't happen again. They will make players sign contracts. You are 100% banned from putting anything out on social media, being involved in any sort of racism, religion, or everything like that. That stuff with the Chelsea player, when he was away, like I said, with Argentina, they were singing a club will say, "Sorry, you're linked to us. We're not having that. You're out, or we're going to terminate your contract," so on and so on and so on.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. Deji, I've got a question for you. Have you seen a celebration in top flight football be mirrored in grassroots football?
Have I seen a top flight celebration be mirrored all the time? All the time.
Goal celebration all the time. So our kids' biggest influence are the professionals. What is stopping this behavior being mirrored in the grassroots game or academy football?
Look, and for me, Andrew, that is the worry. That is the worry. And there is nothing to stop this from creeping into the grassroots games. And honestly, if this starts to creep into the grassroots game, then the game is over. And from my perspective, I enjoy personally grassroots football. I love to see my son play and get the enjoyment. But I dread and I loathe to think of a situation where racial comments are coming from the side, or he can't celebrate the way that he wants to celebrate because of fear of some sort of abuse. My wife encourages my son to dance. Do you know what I mean? If he scores a goal, dance. Show a bit of that Joga Bonita. Show a bit of that Jorginho. You get what I'm saying? Show a bit of that Brazilian that you got in your system that comes from your dad. Do you get what I'm saying? So I wouldn't want anything to kind of hold that back. But you're right, you know, and that's why I had to throw the question about should a player withdraw? And I hear what Ade's saying. Do you know what I mean? The clubs have to take a serious view at it. But I also think the players shouldn't have to fear the loss of income, the loss of fitness. I'm talking about you come off that game. And why should that be on the player? You know, Dan talks about trauma. That shouldn't be on the player to have to, first of all, be in a situation. But sometimes desperate measures call for desperate things. So look, Andrew, I know where that question is coming from. I pray that we don't find ourselves in a situation where this sort of behavior is creeping in. But if in a world where social media, people can say what the hell they like, and there's no consequence or recompense, then mate, it's very possible that this could creep into the game.
Do you think it's not in the game already?
It's there. It's there.
Sorry, guys, quick one. So what Ded was saying about, is it on the player? So do you think the silence from other players is a survival strategy or complicity? Because it's just not one player on there. You've got another 10 other players. You don't always see 10 players running over to support this player. So do you think a lot of players, and I'm not saying in any way the non-ethnic, non-black players, they see it the more survival method rather than standing up with their side by side with their teammates, they stay silent.
I hear you, but if all the players walk off, if all the players of, let's say, Real Madrid walk off the pitch, the players have the power, right?
No,
that's when I think the club will do something. But if the players are, I feel like there's this thing about football where I almost feel like the world, hear me out, and it might get a bit techie right now, but I'll just say, I feel like the world worships the game a little bit too much. We got to remember that it is a game. Yeah, it's not life or death. Sometimes even on the grassroots games, I'm seeing kids do some of the most horrendous tackles, and you got parents saying, "Great tackle! You almost broke someone's leg." Is this what we are trying to advocate for? If something is wrong, we should call it out for what it is. It's wrong, and if it requires us walking away and leaving a game, then why not leave the game? Stop, show solidarity. The game can get replayed another time, or that team can be fined and deducted. But not doing something, I think, is the worst thing. And so far, we're relying on clubs to step up. They don't want to step up. They just give a damn about their money. You got to hit them in the pocket. Well, yeah, I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, there's, the point that you just made about the parents on the side sort of clapping tackles and things of that nature. We touched on it in our last live. And this whole topic, like we say, is wider than football. Like, when you think about colonialism and you think about like slave trade and aspects like that, I think in 2026, whilst this time has gone, you think about certain things, like, obviously I know we're in the UK, but think about the US and how segregation was still in act up until 1964. When you actually think about that, that's people's grandparents that were living in that day. Yeah, so we're only 2-3 generations along. So I almost feel like when there's that mindset and that mentality within a home, listen, I'm not saying everyone is racist, but when that mentality exists, we do need to think, you know what, some of the people that we speak about, parents on the sideline and people in society at large, they grew up in those households. Do you understand? And now they're in our position now. Like we're dads now. They now, and they still have that where that's the way they see the world. That's the way that things are identified within their home, and it then comes down to the next generation, which is the kids. But to my mind, it's going to take a good 100 years for that to sort of pass and like become a lot better society, because we're not that far removed from so many different incidents that have happened within the UK and then further afield. And I bring that up because my brother, he runs a team. He runs an under-10 team. They play in the Selkent League, and I'm talking 6 weeks ago, 5 or 6 weeks ago. One of his boys, he was playing. I think he was having a bit with the boy during the game, and without like giving the specific like terminology, the boy like blatantly just racially abused him, like blatant. Like the boy was upset. The game didn't stop at the time, but at half time, the guy said to the manager, my brother's the assistant manager. He said to the manager, "That boy there called me a black," and do you know what I mean? So it's prevalent in today's game right now. There was a reference that was made to the referee, and it was spoken about to the referee. The game continued. The boy said he was okay. I'm sure he's had further conversations with his parents, but a lot of that stuff is just internalized. Do you know what I mean? Because you're not expecting that as a young boy on the pitch. And like I say, I come back to the fact that that boy was so brazen to do that on a pitch to another 10-year-old boy based on what's taking place within his house. Because, I've had people say to me, the way that the parents on the sideline were acting, it's representative of the child behaving in that way. So it's an issue that is certainly in today's game. And just to add to that as well, so off the back of that, statements and submissions to the Kent FA went forward, but they haven't heard anything about it. Nothing. So that's. I don't want to say that's the state of today's game in grassroots football, because it's not, but it certainly happens in grassroots football. But then again, what are the actual lawmakers and the governing bodies doing about it?
Yeah, that's a good
point. To be fair, OC, what do they do about most incidences in grassroots football? They don't do a lot. In junior grassroots football, you could bring up fights, you could bring up, I don't know, dirty tackles, leg breakers. They actually don't want you to give them problems. They want you to give them solutions. They actually fine you if you take to Deji's point, if you say my player's been racially abused and you stop that game from happening, you take your team off the pitch, they will fine you as a club. Right? And they'll probably say, no, we wouldn't do that. But there have been scenarios where the manager has felt it the safest option and the thing to do to protect his players is to stop the game and take his players away, and they have thanked him by fining him and the club. So, in the same breath, if someone brings up racism, which is going to be harder to prove, right? Let's be honest, at this age, they're going to do exactly the same thing. They don't have the appetite to deal with it. They just want games to go ahead. And I mean, Deji touched on it. Sometimes football is bigger than life. People value it so highly. I think Pep touched on it, and we touched on it in this pod. I think Tom mentioned it. You mentioned it. I think we've all mentioned it. It's a societal problem. We had the BAFTAs the other day, right? The weekend gone. So the same weekend Fofana, Tolu got racially abused. We had, I believe it was a director at the BAFTAs, a nominee, who has Tourette's, that actually, I think when Michael B. Jordan and another black actor were on stage, shouted out the N-word. Now, he has Tourette's. So I don't know the full kind of medical conditions around Tourette's, but I know people with Tourette's tend to make inappropriate comments at the wrong time, right? So you could argue it's Tourette's. But what I would argue is, why is that word in his vocabulary? Because if it's not in his vocabulary, regardless of having Tourette's, he can't shout it out. But to your point, it's a societal problem. And football will always have the problem if it's prevalent in society, right? And you mentioned that we're not so far away from the slave trade. Okay, the UK is slightly different, but really, is it? Like, are we not seeing the effect of racism and slavery in this country time and time again, whether it be direct, whether it be a microaggression, whether it be like a comment that people just don't understand that they've made? Can I touch your hair? Like, we living in around London is not so bad, but we know the further out from London we go, the worse it becomes. And I'm sorry, that's just facts, right? And it may not be our generation, but it will be parents and grandparents. So I don't know. I don't see, to Dan's point, 2027, 2028, 2045, I've given up on it. And that's the wrong attitude, I know. But if it doesn't change at the top, it's not going to change. And the other thing, I'll go as far as to call out the monarchy. And people believe in the monarchy, or maybe not so much now, but I always said I would rather my child be prime minister than, be prime minister, because I don't believe they can be part of the royal family. So I don't really pay much attention to the royal family. And I know draws a lot of revenue for this country, etc., etc. And the Queen was loved, etc. Yeah, got time for it, for the Queen and all of that, whatever. But my point is, Meghan Markle joined the royal family. And this is a pillar of the UK society. And we all know that story. Yeah. Her husband, the spare will, we all know that story as well. So I don't know. I don't know what to say, but I don't see it changing anytime soon.
Andrew, I was just going to, sorry, because I just saw that Tom had come off mute a couple of times. I don't know, Tom, if you want to come in now or do you want to come in after Dan?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think for me, I agree with everything that Addy and have spoken about. We need to start involving the clubs at a greater punishment. We also need to sort of start looking at sponsorships. We need to start looking at real lifetime bans. You know, we need to hit people hard, and ultimately, you know, it's devastating to hear what OC just said about, you know, family members, you know, in grassroots. You know, I just don't know how people would be able to stand there and not react, to be quite honest. But for me, banning players is a must. Then you start looking at clubs in terms of they get deductions, they get thrown out of leagues. I would go as far as saying they drop out of leagues. They drop down. You know, the owners, the people that are investing in there, the sponsorship deals, they lose all rights to play live TV games. You know, there's. I also think, you know, which I've been really shocked at over the last, you know, week or so since this has all happened, is the lack of support from the teammates. You know, you stand as one. You know, there's been a lack of support from there. But I also think big brands are to blame as well. You know, they're happy just to you know sweep this under the carpet. You know, you look at some of these big clubs and you look at the big names that are associated with all of these clubs. You know, they need to start looking at pulling their sponsorship. this is such a big topic, and ultimately we're all trying to create first class human beings, and they're seeing that this kind of stuff is acceptable and it's not, and we need to stand together to make sure that whatever we need to do, and the fact that I'm hearing Dan say that this will happen and this will keep happening, and with Andrew saying the same thing. For me, that's, I said that at the beginning, I'm devastated, I'm ashamed and appalled to be associated with the world that we're in. We're all trying to make sure that we look after and raise good kids, and they're getting to see this. And I just want to start seeing a lot more from the hierarchies of not just the clubs themselves, but the people that are investing in the clubs, the people that are making decisions around sponsorship. We saw it in the past that we've seen big brands pull their sponsorship from players. We should be seeing brands now pull their sponsorship from clubs. Really affecting things, and losing the TV rights. That should be a must straight away. That there should be no conversation about this. These things should be until we start seeing dramatic change. These things have to be, and contracts. Players shouldn't be told that they can't walk off a pitch. They're going to lose out. That's nonsense. They should be able to. They've got a right. They've got to stand up for those rights. But I'm just appalled by also the lack of support from teammates and clubs. There's no real statements around coming out and supporting the individuals. It's just not acceptable. But sorry, I did want to come in a couple of times, but I knew that people were speaking, but just quite passionate about that.
No, thank you. Brandon.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I hear everything Tom says, man. I hear it. Echo the same kind of views as well on what's going on. We talk about how things are amplified. We talk about the media. So if you look at 2026, 8 years ago, Raheem Sterling made this big statement on his Insta about when Phil Foden bought a house for his mum, Tosin bought a house for his mum, and how the media had that subtle tones. Like Foden was heartwarming, family orientated thing, and it was so great. When the other story, Tosin was more like lifestyle and cost, where the statement wasn't about how much the price of the house was. It's the fact they did the same gesture, but the tone of the media was totally looked at different, and that only going to fuel the racism and the stereotypes or views of people based on it's not what's happening on the football pitch, it's not in our houses, that's in the media and outside in big industries, worldwide industries, and environments where they influence people's thoughts, feelings, and views. And that was 8 years ago. So that happened 8 years ago. And look, we're still having the same conversations today. So another 8 years, this is going to be another story again. We're going to get a new Vinny Jr. that's going to go through this. Yeah.
Dan, can I ask you a quick question about the social media? Sorry to jump in, but could we not when these situations occur, could there not be sort of things around the platforms where key individuals that are involved in any racism lose their platform to speak? Ultimately that could be a club social media, that could be a player's social media. These things are so powerful and they're reaching out to so many people. When we start, we need to be taking away their access to ultimately reach so many people in the world. Yeah,
100%. I think that's perfect.
Yeah, I agree with that. Even these stupid anonymous accounts shouldn't have access to troll people. If you're not verified in some way in terms of how your account is verified and it's being traceable, don't have access. Take it away. You can watch, you can scroll, whatever else. But if you're gonna become a keyboard warrior, take that facility away from people. Yeah, I think that's one thing in these platforms. But again, all these platforms, every view, every click, every comment generates some form of income. And unfortunately for us, money rules the world. And if football was a global force, with all the resources and finances, ain't able to find a solution and not able to willingly find a solution that we actively see, what chance does other industries around the world have? And look, if it happens in a stadium of 60,000 people, it's not 60,000 people though, is it? It's millions of people. That's just in a stadium there. You have another X amount of millions watching on the TV, on social media. Yeah, so it's not just a lesson that's been in the stadium. We've all seen it. I wasn't in Portugal last week. None of you guys were, but we still feel the force of it.
Yeah. Well, the fans in the stadium themselves, there were kids in the stadium doing monkey impressions in the corner where Vinicius Junior scored that goal. So they're heavily influenced by somebody all the time, it seems, and feel free to do that without punishment. I just wanted to go back on your point, sorry, Dan, and your point, Tom. So with regards to keyboard warriors, myself and Ade spoke about this earlier. If there was an act of terrorism, these platforms would be able to trace the IP address and find that person, find those people. If there's acts of racism online, why shouldn't we find those people and cut off their internet? You don't need internet to survive. You don't actually need it to survive. Like, why are these people not punished? Why do we not take away their access? I know these platforms, like you said, do not want to lose a click, and they will hide behind freedom of speech, certain platforms. But like I said, if it was terrorism, if they were a mass murderer, if it was maybe a paedophile ring operating using these platforms, they have the means to shut them down. They just don't have the appetite to shut these things down, unfortunately. Go on, Dave.
No, I was just going to say the key word being appetite to shut down. Let's also be real. We go to games. We get annoyed when we find out that the game is not happening because of the pitch. I don't know about you. I get annoyed. Like, I'm like, I don't even know.
We know you get annoyed, Reggie.
I'm just, airing out the day laundry now. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with my Sunday. The game's been called off. I'm having kittens. And I think really what needs to happen is the world needs to wake up and say, look, this is a game, but there are standards that we expect. And that it goes back to that societal point. But I'm looking at my club. I'm looking at grassroots. How many of us are willing to turn your back on your club, whether grassroots or otherwise, for the greater good? And that is the question. That's a rhetorical question. You can answer that to yourselves. But that, I think, is the crux of the matter. That is the issue for me, Andrew. And unless people are willing to stand up and say, for the right thing, I'm going to take this stance, nothing will change. And unfortunately, the powers that be, they know this. Lest they get, we're talking about clubs doing stuff. They don't have to do nothing. And I don't want to move it to, do you get what I'm saying? They don't have to do anything. As long as
I agree with you. You know what? I was going to say earlier. So if we don't demand more as individuals, as a society, are we only just saying we're going to tolerate it and we're going to accept it? That's basically what we're saying. And if we don't demand more and take action against it, we're actually against it. All we're saying is we're going to tolerate it and accept it because we know that, again, us here are internalizing it then this internal trauma of ourselves. That's what we're basically doing then, because we don't demand more, we're accepting it, end of. And that cycle continues. So as you know, Dej, and I spoke to you, Andrew, plenty of times, and as fathers, we know we are our children, our sons, superheroes. Yeah. So ultimately, they mirror and see and want to do what we do. So if they see and accept that, as my dad accepted it, he went through it, it must be the norm. It's okay to do so. So as they get older, that means that resilience becomes acceptance. Yeah, not the fact that it's wrong. They're accepting that they can walk down the street, they can walk in away from football in the workplace. Because let's get it right. This is not just section to football. This is a worldwide thing. It happens every day, walk of life, in the workplace, behind closed doors, in the office when there's just 3 or 4 people when they can have a conversation.
100%.
You know, my son's gonna see me call it out though.
Yeah, no, and this is what I said. So this
100%.
Yeah, 100%. Can I?
Sorry, just quickly. Sorry, Andrew. Sorry. Is there a world where? Sorry, and I'm going to go back to this. Is there a world where? Because for me, if for example, Vinicius walks off, Rodrigo walks off, Bellingham walks off. Do you know what I mean? Camavinga walks off. You know, Valverde walks off. Are you telling me that people's eyes won't wake up a little bit? And I think that's what's missing in the game. Like, I feel like I don't. It's not selfish, but we gotta have some balls, man. We can't say we want something or this is the standard, but then when the situation is at your doorstep, you're like, you're not doing nothing. You know, Dan talks about the superhero. Superhero backs the chat. And for me, I'm not seeing enough backing of the chat. I'm not seeing enough outrage. Let's just be honest. We're talking about how bad this is. We spent a good hour and 15 minutes. I haven't seen Jude Bellingham do nothing. Only Mbappe has said something. But I'd be saying, if I was Mbappe with that kind of power, not to stick it on Mbappe, I would be refusing to play the next Champions League game for Madrid. It's not Madrid's fault, but I want to see Madrid stick some pressure on Benfica. Do you get what I'm saying? That's what it needs. Because I don't think the teams are just going to do it. They're not. If the players continue to play, they will continue to brush it under the carpet.
Do you think it's got something to do with contracts? Do you think, because this is where for me it becomes ridiculous, because I think they're handcuffed because of what they've got in contracts, and sometimes the money, and that's for me the sad part of it, isn't it? This is the sad part of it. Whereas, you know, we're all sitting here saying that they're superheroes, but superheroes are just putting up with it because they're getting paid lots of money. We haven't seen the wider group of players come to stand with everyone, and that's why I said earlier, I think it's shocking. Like, we need to see a more of a stand on this.
You mentioned before about can we ban accounts? Can we stop their internet and so on? There's an element of that which I understand, but I don't think I agree with. And the reason is it doesn't mean that they won't be able to get across their message. It just means it goes underground. In Europe, as we're speaking, you've got racist organizations like, I think it's Black Eagle, if I'm right, maybe it's in Germany or in somewhere. You've got Marine Le Pen's party in France. Over here, we've got people like Nigel Farage's party. So banning accounts is one element, which again, I'm not sure if I agree with, because I agree with freedom of speech. Even if what you're saying offends, you have the right to speak it. Just like if what I say promotes, I have the right to speak it. But like I said to you before, if you like, just a quick story. When sometimes people see Anthony Yard knocking at people in the ring, they think it's easy. The time when me and Anthony sparred, one time we had quite a vicious spar, and he hit me, and I was dazed. I was actually dazed. I came out of the ring, and I actually could see 2 or 3 lights, and it was the first time it ever happened to me. And then I realized about all those people that he's hit that hard and have been knocked out. Again, I say that to say this: until you've experienced pain of what it feels like to be attacked mentally, physically, emotionally, it cannot affect you in the same way. So the people at the top UEFA, FIFA, they do not feel this pain. They cannot feel what it's like when Vinicius Jr. is crying on stage in front of people saying, all I just want to do is play football. Why is it that my race has to be an issue? When Raheem Sterling says, why is it that this player does this and his teammate who's the same age at the same club does the exact same thing, but one is led to be a bad guy? Why is it that if I speak against something that's wrong, I'm now the one that is the antagonist? Why is it that Jose Mourinho, who has managed many black players, who personally I don't believe is a racist, or unless he is in himself, I don't really, I can't definitely comment that, but he's managed very, who's a psychologist as well as a manager, and probably one of the best managers in the last 20 years, can defend his own player when he probably personally knows for you to do something like that, you must have done something bad. Because they will never or have never felt what it's like to be on the other side. And until you felt that, you can't, it's hard for you. You will never know what it's like being a woman walking out late at night. None of us are women, so would feel the fear or the pressure walking out at 12 o'clock at night. We can't, it's impossible. Okay, we're not women, one. And secondly, if we did walk at 12 at night, at least we'd have, not saying that anything could happen to us, but at least we'd have a sense of, well, I feel like I'll be a bit more okay than if maybe it was a female. When my parents came over there, they said, you would see a sign saying no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. And that psychologically showed you are not welcome. You may be here, but you're not welcome. If we think that racism isn't in grassroots football all the way up, we're kidding ourselves. It's in society. How do we come against it? Like Dan said, yes, you're right. We're naive if we think we're not talking about this in 2039. We're naive. The only thing that would make a bigger dent in it at this moment of time is not players just walking off the pitch. That could do something on a temporary basis and it will gain a lot of clicks and a lot of feedback. But until you force the governing bodies to put such heavy restrictions on players, player ban, to the amount of finance you can now take into your club, they cannot take it seriously because, I go back to it, they cannot feel the pain. They will not feel the pain. And there's a bigger element to this. How are you going to feel if your child comes up to you and said, so-and-so said this about me because I'm black or I'm mixed or something? How are you going to feel then? Because that's what I think about.
It's happened. It's happened.
Yeah.
You know, on this point, so I think the point that you've made and that Tom's raised a few times is important because, like we say, it's wider than football. But if football wants to show its teeth and make a stamp in society, then there needs to be frameworks in place. There has to be frameworks in place because you can have your kick it out campaign, which has been going since day dot, but unless football take it seriously and they're like you say, there's a season ban, a lifetime ban, like heavily monetized sanctions, nothing will change. Because if that was to be brought in and people within the public that are that way inclined saw that and they're like, oh my gosh, that like. I think something happened in Liverpool. It was this season. There was a guy who actually abused one of the players. I can't remember the game.
Semenyo, was it first game of the season? Semenyo.
Yeah, and he got that was against Liverpool. Yeah, and he got a lifetime ban. That particular person. But it's only when it starts impacting players and clubs that society takes a look at football and they're like, actually, they're making a stand here, and you know what? I can't continue to behave or act in this way. So football needs to show its face, and there's a lot of politics and money involved, which perhaps it shouldn't prohibit it, but it does. So I think, these gestures, when you're seeing somebody getting fined £20,000 or £15,000 or behind closed doors, that isn't having an impact. If football really wants to kick racism out of the game, it needs to really stand up and just do something where, like, the media, like, oh my gosh, like, that this guy can no longer play football anymore. Because it's only when people's livelihoods are impacted, when people start to look at it and like, yeah, you know what, football is cleaning up. But I think the challenge with that as well is what you speak about, Ade, in terms of people that haven't experienced it, they don't know how it feels. When you take a look at any corporation, like multi-billion-pound corporation, the top is European and the top is white. And so don't get me wrong, because there's teams that are predominantly black or predominantly Asian that might have a white boy or girl in the team, and that person can also be racially abused as well. So listen, it happens a lot less, but the issue can happen on the other foot. But the reason that I say that is because it's a point that I made previously. When you take a look at these organisations and the top of it is Caucasian males, you've got to think as well. I touched on colonialism before, and the idea about that was we are superior and we need to dominate upon this race and show them and influence them and stand on top of them. And like I say, the impact of that is still here today. And like a lot of these countries are only sort of becoming liberated in like the mid to late 90s as well. So you've got to think people that are in these high and lofty positions that have been in there, it might be through like a family affair where generations are now within these particular roles. They don't want people of colour taking those higher roles. So say, for instance, now there was a 70-30 split or a 50-50 split, you then have more leverage to actually make these changes because things are being heard and things are being acted upon. But if it's a small minority in these lofty positions, again, when you're having conversations in those boardrooms, they might invite someone in and kick it out and they might have their piece and have their presentation. But once they're gone, they just crack on and the normal agenda resumes. So, yeah, it's difficult to actually envision those changes and those sanctions coming in if at the top of the game, the representation isn't there, which it isn't right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say that accountability. There've got to be measurables. We've got to have measurables in place where people are held to, to the sword, basically. In terms of, I'm sitting there thinking that there's people out there that have had drug bans that have got 4 years. Yeah, and I'm thinking like, for me, this is why the level of we need to start having measurables. People need to have ultimately, if they don't abide by the rules, actions are taken. There needs to be some harsher. We're sitting here. Do we think drug ban is appropriate 4 years? And then where do you put racism? For me, racism straight in as a lifetime ban. Like drugs should be a lifetime ban. Why is it only 4 years?
Tom, can I ask you a question? Sorry, Ed.
Yeah, go on.
You have made some fantastic points, so I'm going to pick on you just because I like the angle. I have a different angle, which I'll come to. But how do you think we genuinely create the appetite to really push for some of these bans? Because what I'm hearing are great suggestions. I totally agree with these. We've all said it. Ban the club, ban the player. But there's clearly not enough appetite by those in power, as OC's point. OC got into it with colonialism. I don't really want to get into that because that's not going to change anytime soon, because that has created generational imbalance that really is not going to be reversed in any of our lifetimes or our children's lifetimes, right? So how, if that imbalance is there, which it is, and those that are in charge don't have an appetite, how do we create that appetite, or how will that appetite ever be met in order to put down these really harsh penalties that should be in place? Like 4 years is harsh. It should be life, but 4 years is harsh. We'll never see that with racism. So how do we do that?
But I guess why? Why wouldn't we? Because we have to accept it, mate. You know, that's my answer is that why? You know, it should be, we shouldn't accept that is the answer. You know, I know that some people, you know, they feel like why do we bother? This keeps happening, but you know, we've got to stand together. It's not acceptable. We've got to show the kids that this is not acceptable. We've got to show them that this is how things are going to be. You know, what's happening now isn't the norm. It isn't.
It shouldn't be. No, so sorry, go on. I'll let you finish.
No, so it shouldn't be, and it isn't the norm. It isn't the norm. So we need to come together. You know, you're asking me what do I think is the actual what should we do? I don't have the plan. I don't have the plan. I don't think anyone's got the plan at the minute, but I think we.
So I have a suggestion. I have a suggestion on that. So I've kind of teed you up there for my suggestion, in essence, because you touched on the corporate angle, what the corporate should do. I think as individuals, we should down tools. We should say, UEFA, you haven't done anything. I'm not going to view your Champions League anymore. I'm not going to view your Europa League. I'm not going to view your Euros. If we hit them with the numbers, and no one's going to do this right now, it's going to take somebody with a voice bigger than me to say, stop watching the Champions League, right? Stop watching the Euros. Stop watching the World Cup if FIFA need to do something. Stop watching BT Sports if they're endorsing this. Stop watching Sky Sports if they're not making a stance. Stop buying club shirts, etc. Stop clicking on their websites. Let's not give them the viewership, the clicks, the pounds that they need and want. And this is us biting our nose to spite our face, but a bit like we're asking players to do, potentially. If we all came together and said, you're racist, you're homophobic, whatever, we don't agree with it, we won't support you, I think it would change. Massive ask, massive task.
No, and what you said is what I said earlier in terms of the sponsorships that are associated and pumping in the money into these organizations. You know, that's ultimately, if we start removing that, because you know, Addy touched on that as well from a transfer perspective. That's how they're obtaining money as well. So all of a sudden, if you're not able to pay the wages, the players, your transfers are suffering. You know, there's got to be at the highest possible, you know, element to attack. You know, we can't keep going. You know, we've got to go straight for the jugular, to be quite honest. You know, until we hit these people, like you say, where it hurts, we might not necessarily see the change that we're all after.
So I just want to bring something here. So I'm going to ask a question out as well. Is you're only going to be able to fight from the top, but when two countries go to war, the main people stay. The main people that make the decisions are at the top. They're never on the front line. Mm-hmm. You'll never see Keir Starmer, even Zelensky. I mean, credit to him and stuff like that. Putin, whoever is at war, the main people are never on the front line. So they will never feel it. So the only way you can get them to change their mind is to attack them. So coming back to what I said, which I think Tom's alluding to, you can only get real change if you attack the people at the top, or they will never feel the pain of what's happening for the people on the ground. I was 3 or 4 weeks ago now, I was speaking to my friend. His boys, they actually live up in Ipswich. His oldest boy's in his early 20s. Sorry, yeah, it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago, because Christmas, his boy went out for a Christmas party with his colleagues. Everyone had a few drinks, he got drunk. He was there with his colleagues and the manager. One of his colleagues was starting to be a bit rough with him. He's like, what's going on? Oh, he's had a few drinks, don't worry. Racially abused him. Called him a black this, black that, in front of the manager. So there was 4 of them. He was the only black boy there, and the rest of them were white. He was like, what's going on? Why are you saying that? He was like, oh, shut up. Anyway, from this is what my friend's telling me. So he kind of left on the Monday. That was a Friday, so it was a Friday before Christmas. On the Monday, he went to work, and he sort of like, the manager was like, oh, you know, he had a few drinks. He didn't mean it. It's not like that. But he could see, from what my friends would say, he could see that, you know, he was upset. And he said to my friend's son, you know, don't make a big deal out of it. Don't make a big deal out of it, because he's kind of one of us. So don't make a big deal out of it. So when my friend's son told my friend, and he told me, I could feel the pain over the phone of what he was saying. His son has been racially abused, and then he's been told by his manager, don't make a big deal out of it, because he's kind of one of us. Now, he didn't go to him and say, well, what does that mean? Like, so the pain of that, and then, like I said before, whoever the owner of the company has no clue even what is even going to go on. So then, if we're going to say, oh, you know, we're going to stop watching TV, all my friend's son can do really is leave that job and go and find somewhere else to work. Or what's he going to do? Go and complain to the owner? With what backing? Who's going to help him? It's a very, very difficult scenario. Very difficult. But Tom, I'm going to put this question to you, and you're a stand-up guy, so, you know, I think of it. You've been in and around football, and obviously you've grown up around the same era as us. So we've all experienced racism, and I'm guessing, I don't know, for you, if or have you ever heard people around you being racist? And how has that made you feel yourself, hearing other people abuse someone else of a different race, different color, different... And the reason I'm saying that, coming from a white male's point of view, is because if someone says all white people are racist or all black people are racist, that's dumb, that's ignorant. I've heard stuff coming from black males that I think, why would you say that? Like, and I've not said nothing. Kept my distance, but I just thought, why would you say that? And sometimes because I thought, I just not even got the energy to get into it with them about what they said. But you personally, coming from a white male's point of view, when you've heard other people, not saying your friends or anything like that, or even if some, how have you felt personally?
Yeah, I've been there, heard it. And it's awful. There's no words to even describe it. You know, me and Osi have got a friend in common. I won't say their name, but he, you know, been with him, and it's been subject to abuse in and around where we live growing up. Horrendous. And like, I've been there, and, you know, we all come together and we go, you know, back in the day, you would sort of, you know, maybe try and go after that person, and his reaction would be just leave it. And that would sort of break my heart even more, knowing that, you know, he didn't want to do anything about it. And it felt like he'd been trodden down. But yeah, watching it sort of growing up, yeah, I've been part of, you know, and hearing of, you know, things that have been said, and it's horrendous. But that's why, you know, for me, I sit here and I go, you know, I've seen that, and I want to be part of a movement that changes that. I want to be part of a group of people that really, you know, that my son and or my two sons and my daughter look up to and go, do you know what, you know, you're out there trying your best, and you're a good role model, and you make the right decisions. And I think, you know, that's what I'm here to do. Ultimately, is be that person that your kids can look up to, and know the right from wrong.
I've got a lot of respect for that, Tom, because ideally, I can imagine it can be quite difficult being in an environment, especially like, look, you're the only white guy on this panel at the moment, and all of us are talking about the experiences of racism, which not in all cases primarily goes from white to black. So if we just be open with that. But then for you to come on and say, yeah, I've seen it, I've heard it, and obviously it disgraced me, but then also seeing it from people that that your friends have experienced it and said, no, just leave it. And you now get to see the essence of, hang on a minute, that guy's just, you know, for no reason, and you feel just, you know, a small part of the pain that they have to feel. That's very big from you, because I think a lot of white people find it difficult to come into this topic and then say sometimes what they actually feel about it, because they will feel, how do I get to express myself? Can I really talk on this topic when, you know, it's like people that look like me are the perpetrators, so that I could feel in a bit of an awkward position, you know, in the same ways. If one of us was to go into maybe an all-female panel and talk about something that's mainly related to women, you might feel a bit awkward. So I've got a lot of respect for that, Tom. Trust me, I've got a lot of respect for that, because it shows a big human in you. It shows a really big human in you as well, to say, you know what, yes, I've seen it happen. Yes, I can see where you guys are. I cannot feel the full force of the pain that you guys feel for, but I see where you guys are coming from it, even though I'm in, you know, a different element of how things are portrayed.
Yeah, look, we're all standing together, and if we don't stand together and we don't push for change, then, you know, this will just keep happening and keep happening. So, you know, I'm not saying that us 6 people here on this call will single-handedly change it, but what we can do is us 6 people can certainly go towards trying to change eventually the outcome, and we can play a small part in something going forward. We might not be the people that are ultimately going to change things for the best now, but, you know, if we keep chipping away and we keep sort of adding value. But I keep going back to the whole point is that I'm here. Everything I do is to show my kids the difference between right and wrong. I want them to know what's right, and just be, you know, I always think, you know, ultimately we can keep going on about a lot of this has to, you know, ultimately goes back, and you're a product of your family life. And I think, you know, and how things are being spoken to, and, you know, comments that are being made, that's all learned behavior. You don't wake up one day being racist, in my opinion.
No.
So, you know, that's why I make a huge effort and make sure that in every walk of life and whatever I do, is that my kids will know that that's the right way or the wrong way.
Brilliantly put, Tom.
Yeah, quite emotional today, Tom.
No, it has been that type of podcast, to be fair.
Yeah.
And to be quite honest, I want to see change. Want to see change as much as what all of you two or all of this group wants to see. And you all know me well enough that there's I won't swear, but this is a genuine me. There's no I'm not saying it because of any other reason. You all know that this is who I am, and I generally care about this topic.
Yeah, I think for me, I know we've been in there an hour and 45 now. I think not so much a point, just a little statement. I want to say that obviously there's going to be boys, girls watching this, child watching this, and we've debated about football racism. We've talked about sanctions, statements, but I think what matters most is like what goes forward. Like in 20 years' time, like a young black boy is going to see this. He's going to see buying his mum's house. It's possible. To success of buying mum is something possible. He sees that. But when he sees that's one thing being football and being success, the riches and elements of buying a house for your parents. But then being racially abused and no actions, he learns something totally different. Then he learns success doesn't guarantee respect or actually lays down the values he's been raised with, like maybe his parents or his dad or his mum. And on the flip side, now you get a young white child maybe watching this, he sees racism and nothing really changes for them. So what have they learned? What they learn about accountability is optional. You know what to have your actions. Okay, football isn't just an entertainment; it's a global classroom. It's there for everyone to see. It happens all the time. So every single chant, every headline, every weak consequence that we don't see happening or we see happening, it just shapes not just a league table competition. It actually shapes their values in life going forward. So for me, the biggest question is now, I guess, is football doing enough? And in 20 years' time, will our boys, our daughters, will they see this moment as a choice or change made by change out of courage, or just out of comfort? Because they're watching this and ultimately they're going to have their own views and their own feelings in years to come.
Well put, Dan.
Definitely.
And Dan, can I just say, you took away my Vincent Kompany, Kate Scott moment from me with my closing statement. So thank you for that. But well put. And just on that note, because it's been a very somber podcast, and rightly so. But Ade, I've got to call it out. You could have told your little story without saying that you were the only person not to be knocked out by an enemy yard. Just saying, big ads.
I stayed on my feet. I stayed on my feet.
Just saying that.
You said you wanted to get more information from Ade.
I took a standard 8 count. Tunde gave me a standard 8 count. Joe can testify. I stayed on my feet.
Just saying that. Just saying. You spoke for about 20 minutes, and all I heard was, I didn't get knocked out by it. No, all jokes aside. I thought I just had a bit of bants. So what is a difficult topic? We've come away from what we normally do here on Ball at All Costs. And I think it was pertinent because all of our children have been affected and many people around the world have been affected by this situation and continue to be affected by it and will continue to be affected by it until some real change occurs. But what I would urge is everybody to understand that what we try to do here is not just think pieces. We try to educate. We try to discuss the difficult things in football. And this is definitely one of them. And I just urge you to listen, to share. I'm just reading the last statement.
Yeah, the comment that just came through Ade.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's at academy level, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I just urge everybody to share this.
That's nice. Thank you very much, man. That's much nice.
To comment on this and let this not be our lowest viewed pod. Because if it is our lowest viewed pod, and I know it's an awkward topic and an awkward conversation at times, it will really show us what society is all about. I want to prove that society isn't reflective of the comments and the actions we've seen recently. I want us to share, listen, comment, put suggestions out there, because listen, you never know who is the next revolutionary listening, watching at any point. Share your thoughts, positive thoughts on how we can go about change, because all it takes is the spark to ignite the flame, the change. You know what to do. Please leave a notification, a comment. Sorry, hit the notification, leave a comment, hit a like. Please subscribe. And if you're listening on the audio feed, please do the same. 5-star comments, because we only give you 5-star content. And if you are true to this, please introduce somebody who's new to this. This is a different topic for us, but it's one close to all of our hearts. We've been Ball at All Cost, and we are out.